Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why Townsfolk Tussle by Panic Roll is in fact better than Kingdom Death. This is a 1 to 5 player boss battler, so this is going to reflect or represent the showdown phase of Kingdom Death Monster, and has a lot of elements that you can tell are sort of a love story towards that behemoth of a game. I mean, we've established on this channel in the past that Kingdom Death in a lot of ways set the framework for a new genre of gaming. That Monster Hunter, boss battler, big box, games that fit on your shelf that you never really get to the table, lifestyle board games in a way. And we've established here on the channel, for those of you that are brand new, that Kingdom Death Monster is and has been my favorite game of all time. And so I feel very, very equipped to say Townsfolk Tussle deserves to be directly on the shelf next to my Kingdom Death Monster. And those of you that are watching, my hope with this video is to communicate and show off this little indie game from a brand new publisher to those of you that love Kingdom Death the same way I do. Because genuinely, I think some of the things that are going on here make this significantly more fun to sit down and play than that giant big black box of death. So, let's not hold any bars, let's go ahead and dive into this. I just want you to know, hit that subscribe button down below because we are going to be coming out with another preview and gameplay and whatever content we're able to do around Townsfolk Tussle here as we approach the Kickstarter launch, which is going to be next Tuesday. So, keep your eyes and ears open. And with that being said, let's dig into Townsfolk Tussle. Townsfolk Tussle is going to be a boss battler, where you're working together with a crew of 1920s golden era style characters, doing your very best to take down various showdown creatures or monsters or ruffians who are invading the town. You see, the sheriff of Eureka Springs has been murdered in a variety of different ways with a variety of different objects and tools, which is a problem. Because without the sheriff here to protect the sanctity of our borders, ruffians have started invading our town. Right now I have Pep and Milk Frog set up. We also have Virginia Fritz, Will Barlow, Quinn and Queen, Deputy Woogums, Lawnman Dozy, Penny Pinchetti, Samuel Strawman, Bort Dovis, The Bundits, Hansy, a pile of different showdown characters and showdown bosses that you can face off against. And over the course of a game, this game is going to average about 60 minutes per player, and over the course of the game, you're going to be fighting through 4 different showdowns or 4 different boss battles. Gaining gear, ripping body parts off of your opponent, equipping them to yourself, and using those, tools to then beat the other person to a either early death or scare them back off into the forest from which they came. Throughout this process, you're also going to be bumping heads a little bit with the players around the table, pulling town events that are story elements that provide some interesting interaction either between players or some new rules and context for the next event that you're facing off against, purchasing from the market here, doing your best to equip the best gear that you can to not only help yourself, but also help your opponents, and also, most importantly, activating and utilizing your own secret objectives. Now, I know what you're thinking. A boss battler or a cooperative game with elements of secret objectives in it may be a slight turnoff, but I can say in this one, it isn't at all. Instead, those secret objectives give you bonus points or bonus coins or allow you to get extra weapons that eventually help all of you together. Think of it in a Gloomhaven-esque treasure chest in the corner of the room. It helps everyone if you achieve your goals, but to win or be the person who wins the most, you want to be the person that gets that treasure chest. That dynamic, that contrast between players, the fact that you're both all trying to take down this ruffian in your own unique ways, but also have some hidden motives or hidden elements that you're trying to utilize, really starts to set this showdown apart. Combined, of course, with the beautiful art, incredible flavor text, lovely theme and lore, and finally, the environment you're playing in. this terrain, this experience will shift and change as you're fighting, from the chump to the hooligan to the troublemaker, all the way down to the final fight, the final ruffian fight. Each one of these ruffians will have new levels or degrees of challenge that you're facing off against depending on where in this order they are. So they'll start to change and transform as you're fighting against them. In a similar vein to Kingdom Death, you are going to be pulling an AI deck. You are going to be building and fighting against a specific personality that has its own unique traits and objectives, and you're going to be setting up or establishing some incredible lore and incredible role-playing around the table. So with that overview established, let's swing into the 5 reasons I think Townsfolk Tussle is better than Kingdom Death. First off, this is going to be an accessible one-shot experience. It will usually take 2 to 3 hours to play through a full session, depending on how much fun you're having and how many people are sitting around the table, but the reality of it is, you can set this game down, you can play it, you can experience it, you can laugh and joke and get completely decimated, and then you can put it back on the shelf, you can put it away. For me, Kingdom Death, while my favorite game, period, is still one of those games that I oftentimes don't bring out to play with friends. It takes a lot to teach, to set up, to show off. It is overwhelming in its both genre and nature, and I have almost never made it to end game. That's not the case here with Townsfolk Tussle. In fact, if I want to show off and prepare someone to enjoy Kingdom Death, I'm likely going to get this to the table first. This is sort of the litmus test. If they can have fun playing this, maybe, depending on their personal tastes and preference, they can have fun playing a full 60 to 90 hour campaign of Kingdom Death with me. So if you're looking for a one-shot boss battler, if you're looking for something that is easier to teach, way more accessible, and just a fun and joy to get down onto the table with brand new players, Townsfolk Tussle is going to have Kingdom Death beat. On top of that, I've touched on this a little bit, but Townsfolk Tussle was designed by people that it seems like they played Kingdom Death and then thought to themselves, what if we made this with a little bit more fun and slightly less depression? And I'm allowed to say that. I mean, I sunk headfirst into Kingdom Death because of the world, the purgatory-esque nature of it, the darkness, the overwhelming, consuming depression and sorrow, and you just being the weakest thing that exists, period. And Townsfolk Tussle, I have to be honest, is more fun than Kingdom Death. Not in every single way, but in some of the ways that, for me, matter the most. For instance, the flavor text, the gameplay mechanics, sitting around a table with a group of people, the way you're interacting because of your secret objectives, the way you're ripping body parts off of these ruffians and then using them to re-beat those creatures back into oblivion. I absolutely love that idea. And I think one of the best ways for me to display why I'm so sweet on this, on the nature of it being fun, is perfectly summarized with a little bit of flavor text from Henlo Bulwark. And every single creature, every single item, there's so much story and flavor that exists in this game. The amount of just world building that's been done is absolutely incredible. But this has to be one of my favorites. A newcomer to Eureka Springs, Henlo fled her hometown after accidentally opening her neighbor's mail. Fearing capital punishment for her heinous crimes, she flew the coop, retreating to Eureka Springs for safety. Henlo warned the other townsfolk that she's a wanted hen, but they still welcomed her with open arms. She cleared out a vacant plot of land and made a nest for herself, but fears the townsfolk may one day turn on her to collect her, presumably, giant bounty. Henlo is convinced these ruffians are bounty hunters out for her head. In order to preserve her newfound life, she's decided to work with the other townsfolk to fend off the intruders. No one's sending Henlo to the pokey without a fight. She's a skittish mender that's hard to keep down. That is enough to establish my argument that Townsfolk Tussle, compared to Kingdom Death, is just more fun. Following up with that, the third point I want to bring up is going to be the interactivity here on the board. For this being a one-shot boss battler, it has a lot of stuff going for it that allows it to operate within that tighter time frame, whereas Kingdom Death is about resource harvesting and collecting and the settlement survival and bringing things back home and slowly progressing and equipping and developing your characters, this is going to be a cartoon style, hit him over the head with a rubber mallet, do as much damage, get as much loot as you can, and then figure out your perfect character build as you're journeying through. And it does that well. From knocking on the barn door to either get a little bit of health or have a shotgun blast fire out, to digging in a trench, hopping over or breaking directly through the fence post, triggering the car that runs over everything in its direction, dropping a coin down the well to potentially gain an item back, getting stung by the beehive. There is so much going on here. And a pile of other locations and terrain events. One of the areas that I think Townsfolk Tussle, or I know Townsfolk Tussle excels at compared to Kingdom Death, is going to be the scale and the interactivity you have here on the board. You are gaining and collecting, and it feels like you're just reaching into a pile of loot and grabbing everything out, and a pile of terrain items and utilizing everything you can. And it's this helter-skelter dance around the board that is not only fun to play, but also feels like you're directly experiencing the environment. Whereas in the showdown phases of Kingdom Death, you might go pick an acanthus plant, or you might hide in the tall grass, which are mechanics that are very beneficial. This exists in a slightly different space. Here, not only to complete your objectives, but also just because there's a lot of opportunity, you are dancing around, triggering and pressing buttons, and feels like you have just a big sort of digital scale in front of you, and you're thinking, what happens if I go here and press this button, and if I pull this lever, and what happens if can I lift this part of the... And as you do it, you may realize that you can press that button and pull that lever and dance around the board, doing and experimenting with as much as possible. And there is a lot to experiment with, from, in this prototype, a pile of town events, all the way up to stacks and stacks of items and secret objectives. This game is packed full of opportunities for you to interact and experience and just pull and poke and press on everything. The next point I want to bring up is going to deal with the player state, or how many people I want around the table playing this game. This is going to be a game that excels with 2, 3, 4, even 5 players sitting around the table. Now, it can play 1, and I know they're revising the solo version of this game, but for myself, if I have to pick a solo game, I'm probably still going to be looking at a longer campaign, a longer narrative style like Kingdom Death. Kingdom Death is probably a game that I prefer to play solo nowadays, honestly, just because so many people come and go. Townsfolk Tussle solves that problem for me, and now that it's in my collection, the odds of me pulling out this other behemoth, compared to just a quick little boss battler that all of my friends can enjoy and understand, this one's probably going to hit the table with a group of friends more often than any of my other boss battlers. If you're looking for this helter-skelter, enjoyable experience, this one's going to have it in lock. And the reason being is because you not only have the flavor text and the fun that gives everyone a role to play and an adventure to go on, it's also not overly committed. It's a one-shot. But along with that, I've mentioned multiple times that interaction between players, that dance to try to become the sheriff yourself by the end of the game, to be the winniest of the winners. And that, for me, if you enjoy a little bit of butting heads in your cooperative gameplay, that for me just works so well at establishing why I'm interacting, of giving me different motives than just focus on the villain. It allows us to work together as a team, but it also creates these incredible moments where you're screaming at your friend, why are you going to the car? Or you realize that despite you being in front of the vehicle, they're going to pull the lever, ignite the gas, and hit that gas pedal no matter what, because their secret objective says that's a good idea. This game, Townsfolk Tussle, is going to play at higher player counts better than Kingdom Death ever has for me. And then finally, the last thing that I want to bring up in this conversation is just going to be the creators themselves. I absolutely have enjoyed spending time hanging out, playing this game, getting to know the 3 core designers and artists behind Townsfolk Tussle. And of course, I love Adam and the team, but Over the years, there's been, if you're a Kingdom Death fan, a degree of frustration with the lack of conversation. And what I can say so far in this experience is these three creators have been some of the most accessible, inviting, open to suggestions, and willing to engage with their community that I've ever seen. And so, as their Kickstarter launches, stay tuned for updates and comments and potentially to play games with them, and I'm sure this is going to knock it out of the park. And I hope you're going to be watching for when this Kickstarter goes live so that you don't miss out on this opportunity. But genuinely, I think they're going to run themselves ragged doing the best they can to communicate and interact and just say thank you to you and everyone who's going to invest in this. This game is a charm. I've enjoyed every single session I've had with it, and it stayed on the periphery of my mind as something that I want to get back to the table, and that's saying a lot, because the reality of it is I play so many games so often right now, and cycle so much through my collection just for the nature of this channel, that for something to remain punctuated in the back of my mind, and on top of that, something that I want to find an excuse to get back to the table and introduce to new people, says a lot about what they have going on here. This game, at the end of the day, is just fun. And finally, I know there's going to be some questions down in the comment section down below talking about the other games that have competed in the Kingdom Death space. I mean, there's a variety of them out there that are trying to work their way into the genre that I think Kingdom Death created. And while I would love to check some of those out, while I'm excited to see what sort of adventures we can go on, I am always heavily skeptical of games that are directly trying to compete with Kingdom Death, because Kingdom Death really does have a grail spot in my mind, and I'm not looking for something to replace it. I'm looking for a game that sits right next to it, that supplements it, that is an introduction to it, that takes the experience that I love there and lets me share that with more people around my gaming group. Because Kingdom Death and even some of those other alternatives are not going to be right for 90% of your players. I think this one has a little bit more range and can be gotten to the table with a higher variety of individuals. So, with that being said, those are 5 reasons why Townsfolk Tussle by Panic Roll is in fact better than Kingdom Death. And as far as my opinion goes, if you're a fan of Kingdom Death, if you enjoy the showdown phase, if you want a boss battler, don't miss out on this one. Genuinely, I'm going to be right there with you. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you have any questions. I am happy to answer as much as I can. Along with that, keep your eyes open, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be coming out with a variety of new content. Yes, both on Townsfolk Tussle and also on Kingdom Death. In fact, we've started recording a full campaign of Kingdom Death that I just have to find the time and freedom to edit, which hopefully I'll be able to do over the next few months. And we have gameplay and more content coming for Townsfolk during the course of the campaign. So, be sure to swing over there. Be sure to follow the link in the top of this video to make sure that you're notified so you can tune in for launch day, which is coming up in just a few days. Whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.